Check 1, 2. Do I have to say anything?
Nope, call this meeting order.
I'm going to call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start this meeting, we're going to have a moment of silence for a student that recently passed away, Jilly Kimball. We'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, welcome to the meeting. We're going to start off our meeting. Do we have our student representatives here today? All right. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm Taylor Walker, the Student Council Secretary. Today on our agenda, it's a little bit bigger than usual, but that just means we've been doing some awesome things lately, so I'm happy to get started. First of all, our Science Olympiad team placed 5th out of 73 teams at the Dick Smith Online Invitational. Our first place finishers were Cyril Giggy and Jacob Sickler, and other top finishers were Adam Hall, Caleb Platukis, Aslan Thomas, Layla Henry, Jason Gao, Darius Hall, Andrew Andrus, Jacob Hovan, Katie Gorman, and Niana Beeman. They'll have their first in-person meet coming shortly, so more to look forward to, more exciting things. For FBLA, our first and second place finishers also had a great competition. That was Carter Rude, Haley Schultz, Kara Schultz, Brian Thompson, Olivia Bartlow, Kendra Bartlow, Vegas Alfred, Addison Wheeler, Allie Martin, Levi Stump, Ashlyn Van Fleet, Nora Reed, Evan Cooper, Amber Galvin, Olivia Mustard, Keaton Wiles, Natalie Watson, Grant Lichty, Carly Barlow, and Braylon Wood. All of those students will be competing at the state competition in Hershey, also coming up. So again, more exciting things to look forward to for next time. And our Scholastic Art Awards also happened. Our winners there were Aaron Rockwell, Connor Brown, Zachariah Earls, Emma White, Christine Doherty, Katie Gorman, Vegas Alfred, Niana Beeman, Michael Gee, Kaylee Grazel, Madeline Jones, Halia Kosas, Nora Lee, Shelby Morris, Madison Park, Tegan Williams, and Brandon Wilson. And lastly here, I just have our athletic highlights. Our Basketball Valley Christmas tournament happened over Christmas break. Our boys varsity won first place, girls third place, and both JV teams won first place. Our girls wrestling team won the Athens dual meet, making school history. Cadence Mosick scored her 1,000th career point over Christmas break too, which is very exciting. And Hannah Walker signed to play Division I soccer at St. Bonaventure University last Friday. Also very exciting. And again, upcoming events is just FBLA states. So a lot to look forward to, a lot of good things. Hopefully I'll have some more good stuff next time.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Hannah. Presentations. There's no presentations right now. So we'll start off with committee reports. We'll start off with finance and operations. Do we have somebody reporting out for finance and operations? Okay. Yep, go ahead.
Sorry. Our main discussion this evening was we have antiquated lighting at the auditoriums in Harlan Row and the high school. And pre-me, we had bids and bid openings. The bids have come in, and the committee recommends that we accept the low bid by John Mills Electric out of Elmira for $419,000. The second lowest was 750 more, and the next was 700,000 more. No, 476,000. Okay. We're going to be opening bids for the mowing contract. We do a 3-year weeks because that's going to need to start. Out for a few years, and it is currently through Eastern. See if we can get. That again contract, and that will be starting the bids for. That's all I have.
If I could add one thing. So I believe we'll have to add to the agenda for under either business or contracts, except the RFP for the lighting project, and that would be Mills Electric.
Okay.
So we'd have to add that.
Is it buildings and grounds already?
Is it already on there?
14A.
Yeah, and we might, so we just want to make sure we highlight who we're going to accept.
The accepted
So
bid.
We'll be amending that.
Okay.
slightly. John Mills Electric, yep. Thank you, Cindy.
Can I ask for an update on one of the ESSER projects?
Go ahead.
Sound system for the gymnasium?
Yes, so we actually talked about that today in our administrative meeting. There has been an incredible delay in logistics to get all the equipment here. It is on site, it is being put together, and it's actually almost ready to be installed. In fact, I think they're coordinating installation this week or next for it. Yeah, this week. So there you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Any other questions for finance and operations?
I've never heard of any problems. there.
Never. Personnel and policy. Do we have somebody reporting out for personnel and policy?
You got me all excited about the sound system. Oh, what did I do with it? So we looked at, oh yeah, no. We looked at policy. It was the graduation requirement policy. There was one change made. We revised 2020 and the sentence, or there was a sentence missing about. So there was, yeah, so we had to include one sentence that now says there's 5 different pathways that, and they have to have 3 out of the 5. 1 of the 5 pathways. Okay, so there's 5 different pathways. They have to meet one of them, and then in addition to the credits. So I don't know what did I do with that?
When does that go in place? Is that
It's right here.
last?
Correct. So the class of 2023 will have to meet one of the 5 pathways.
So the sentence, in addition, students must meet any other graduation pathway as approved and defined by the PA Department of Education and Legislature. So it's just one little sentence added to our previously approved policy.
We also included a
There's
a graphic to show all the 5 pathways.
That's just the first read then, right?
Correct.
Okay, anything else from personnel and policy?
Nope.
All right, thank you. Curriculum, instruction, and technology. Do we have somebody reporting out for that?
So I'll report on that.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
So they discussed the instructional rounds, which they were excited about doing, but unfortunately due to COVID and Omicron and limitations on people being out, they've put a hold on that. We discussed the upcoming in-service day, which is January 14th. And the teachers will be doing data instruction and planning on that day. We also discussed exciting news about the Pennsylvania Farm Show, where our middle school received their charter. There's some discrepancy as to what number they are, I guess, within the state. 2nd, 4th, we're not exactly certain, but we know they're in the top 5. So that's fantastic. Mr. Schmeg said that right now we have about 20 or so that are involved in that, and we expect that to grow greatly. The winter Keystone assessments were given the first 2 weeks of December. That would be for students who did not achieve a passing score. And there was approximately 120 of those individuals that were retaking that. The district has received some questions regarding remote instructions, and we all keep our fingers crossed that we will not be going remote at all. There's no plan to go remote at this time. However, there is, they have plans set up it is or if it becomes necessary. And last, we discussed the proposed school calendar for the 2022-23 school year, which everyone should have a copy here, and looking to probably pass that at the next meeting. And we've counted multiple times. We have 180 days where they've assured us of that. So and that's all I have. And there was nothing on technology other than myself that I guess the app, who I couldn't work the calendar, I guess you need to update the app, but so I'll double check that to see if it was just user error. All right.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments for curriculum instruction and technology? Okay. On to the superintendent's report. Mr. Stage.
Thank you, Mr. President. And actually, I'd like to reserve my time for January 25th.
Okay.
Thank you.
We do not have a Blast IU 17 rep unless anybody would like to do that. We do not have a rep for that right now. Northern Tier Career Center. Mrs. Minnick, have you been to a meeting since then? I know you are leaving that position, but
I have not been to.
no report. Okay. Mr. Jones, anything from PSBA?
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Barrett, you're up.
Get those to you very shortly. Nobody heard me? Want me to repeat it?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Barrett. Okay, we are up to visitor comments. Please give your name, address, organization which you represent, and subject matter. It is requested that comments be kept to 3 minutes. Comments relative to private student or employee matters should be directed to the superintendent outside of the meeting. This is for board action items only. Come on up and say your name.
My name is Donna Thrush. I live on Milan Road, and I'm in the Smithfield Township, and I'm going to speak to the revision of the health and safety plan. And I'm just here for myself and my family. I have grandchildren who are students in the district, an immediate family member who is employed in the district, and many friends and acquaintances who are working in the district. First, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing on the board. My father-in-law served many years on the school board, and he used to say, I never had an enemy until I got on the school board, because you can't keep everybody happy. So I want to thank you, because I know it's a lot of time and a lot of work, and often a thankless job. As you meet and discuss revisions to the Athens Health and Safety Plan, I'd like to urge you to keep a couple of things in mind. One, a lot of Athens students and staff have already had COVID. Any guidelines or protocols that would differentiate between vaxxed and unvaxxed is ignoring the fact that those who were unvaxxed but got COVID do have antibodies and T cells. And it's debatable. Some people think even better than people who got a vaccine. And I noticed the proposed revision that just went up on the website did not make any differentiation in protocols and guidelines between vaxxed and unvaxxed, so I'm hoping it stays that way. Second thing to keep in mind, I understand the COVID situation keeps changing all the time, and I thank God that Omicron seems to be a more mild variant. Best case scenario, maybe a lot of people will get it. Hopefully it will be very mild, and then a lot of people will have immunity. And that would be good for our community. I'm advocating for several things in this revised plan. Continued optional masking. and not quarantining healthy close contacts. I respectfully ask that you take a look at the policy of some other districts that are doing this. I have two here to mention. Shamokin Area School District on 1/4/22. They have optional masking and quote, non-symptomatic students and staff no longer are being required to quarantine. Second one I want to mention is Palmyra Area School District. In December, their updated plan calls for optional masking and quote, students who are close contacts may attend school unless symptomatic. And I will be sending you guys links so that you can take a look at online at their policies if you wish. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ethan, and I live on Glen Valley Road in Athens. And I do believe that masks should be optional inside the school district because I believe that breathing is a human right and not a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. Yep. Hello, welcome.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Knapp. I'm speaking right now on behalf of someone else. So I'm reading a statement from this person who submitted it, who can't come tonight because she was sick. My name is Jen Huntinger, 11 Hawk Lane, Ulster, Pennsylvania. Comments regarding the health and safety plan. I planned to attend this meeting, but I am not feeling well and won't subject anyone to something I may be coming down with. First, thank you for your time, efforts involved, and consideration of my statement. I do fully support not masking healthy children and faculty and not quarantining them. There are several other school districts who are using this approach such as Neshaminy School District, optional masking. August 2021, their policy read, they will no longer issue isolation orders, quarantine orders, or modified quarantine orders related to COVID-19. January 7th, 2022 update read, close contact to a COVID positive individual. Symptomatic students should not come to school, and students with a pending COVID test should not come to school until results are known. So I think her gist of her was that we should be all taking into consideration what the other school districts are doing with their policies. Thank you.
Any other visitor comments? Yes.
I'm reading a comment. I'm Deb Huber. I live on Main Street. I'm reading a comment from Bud and Deb Stringham from Ridgebury, Pennsylvania on the health and safety plan. Good afternoon, board members, and thank you for all your time and consideration. It was a wonderful day at the PA Farm Show yesterday. We were so pleased to see 3 of our administrators present. We are very proud of Josiah and all our Athens FFA students that were present and received their degree or jackets. We are sending this email to you all as we are not able to attend tonight's meeting. We would ask that you understand our thoughts and stance on the review of the health and safety plan we would like to share. The Cannon-McMillan School District outside of Pittsburgh has a flow chart on their website that reads, asymptomatic close contacts need not quarantine, but testing is recommended 5 to 7 days after contact. We are in favor of Athens having a similar quarantine policy, along with keeping masking and testing optional. We remain that the parents' choice and their discretion is to be upheld, as well as all exemptions, religious and medical, the same. We know the task presented before you is hard and trying. Please know that you are all continually in our thoughts and prayers. Thank you, Don and Deb Stringham. Deb Huber has to say something about the PCR tests are not FDA approved. They are approved for emergency use authorization. You cannot force someone to take or use the emergency use authorized non-FDA product. The inventor and Nobel Prize winner of the PCR test, Carrie Mullis, said that the PCR test should not be used for diagnostic purposes because if you amplify any virus or bacteria high enough, using this test, you can almost find anything and cause a swab test to be positive. This test does not diagnose or tell you quantity of the virus one has. Without knowing the quantity, there is no way to know if someone has enough of the virus to make them sick or transmit a sickness. If you were to use these tests, at what amplification would the swabs be processed? I ask this because Fauci has said that any test processed at an application of 35 or higher is meaningless. All of the COVID testing companies, what qualities and advantages did Wolf administration find with the Ginkgo labs for them to win an approximate $80 million taxpayer-funded contract? It's very important to know who is reading our tests. When someone is tested for strep, flu, or COVID in a doctor's office, is the test administered by a trained and licensed nurse or health professional? Why is the board considering letting a 5-year-old administrator administer this test to themselves? Have you considered when a child inserts the swab into their nose, it may cause them to sneeze, cough without a mask, et cetera, et cetera? What if a parent does not want to use this questionable, toxic, non-FDA approved test? We're talking about the EO that's in there. It's ethylene oxide that's used to sterilize the swab.
I'm sorry, but your time is up. We actually gave you a little bit more time because you were reading, but your time is up.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Any other visitor comments?
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. I really hate doing this, so please, thank you, everyone. Like, my heart is pounding. Anyways, my name's Jamie Rauscher, and I live on Willawanna Road. I heard her give reference to the revised plan, which I was not able to review this afternoon, so I apologize if anything that I'm saying. I specifically was referring to the chart that came out on the 3rd, so please, if anything's kind of off the wall, that's why I usually try to be super informed on this. Thank you for your reception of public comment. I know everyone appreciates this. I'd like to specifically speak in reference to the close contact portion of the health and safety plan. We experience in my household, and coincidentally in the same week, I also had an employee face the same thing with their child. Different kids, different ages, different schools, but the commonality was that it was disruptive to the child's everyday routine. And that just kids, it's hard for them. So specifically, I'm going to speak to high school students because there's a few things that I would like you guys to kind of consider. That's where my kids are, so that's what matters the most to me. I know the policy goes across the district, but maybe that's something you could consider also. Some high school parents are paying for dual enrollment classes. When a child is chosen as a close contact, there's no option for them to get the instruction given by the teacher that's trained and qualified to teach that class. My child missed 3 tests. It was right before break, 2 of which were in those dual enrollment classes. Those are college level classes. A virtual option for instruction would keep the students actively involved in the daily happenings. I think that's vital. Mr. Mosier graciously offered a tutor that was hired by the district for this if needed. So luckily we didn't need it. However, I know from previously doing homebound instruction when I worked in the schools that not everyone is qualified to give the level of instruction that's needed for some of this content. When I worked with a homebound student, a high school student, we did what we had to do to get by in her classes. She wasn't paying for the credits either. So it's just something to kind of think about. This part may be a little off because I didn't see the new plan, but in these guidelines that came out on the 3rd, I just think that there's a discriminatory nature in the way that it was written. I understand these are CDC recommendations that you guys are following. It's just dividing the students into masked and unmasked, vaccinated and unvaccinated. It's just the way it's written, it divides them into 2 categories, and I don't think that that's really fair to the kids because no matter what side they're on, it makes them feel different from the other one. So I'm not saying that's anyone's fault. If I could just real quick, I'll finish real fast. I appreciate this so much. The kids that have mask exemptions also have legal documents stating that they can't be discriminated or treated differently in any other way. So you got to watch that. The one thing that I think is really important, please make sure the district is offering your staff the mental health support and guidance that you offer to these students. Some of them are terrified, and I don't, that sucks. That sucks for them. If there's a legitimate close contact, maybe immediate symptom watch instead of immediate isolation would be more appropriate. So it's just, thank you for letting me
Thank
go
you.
over and everything.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
guys.
Yes, thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matt Cooper. I live in East Athens. I agree with most of what I've heard today. A couple points I'd like to make. The first point I'd like to make is I would like to see the removal of any vaccination clinic language from the health and safety plan. I think in this community, we've done a good enough job of making vaccinations available throughout the community. There's plenty of places to get vaccinations. Those places are not overwhelmed. I don't think that it's necessary for the school district to provide those locations. And additionally, I think that providing those locations would unnecessarily draw more people to the school that would not have otherwise come to the school, and perhaps expose students to additional risk that at this point, like I said before, is unnecessary. So I'd like to see that removed entirely. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Thank you all for the comments. We'll start off with the financial business now. This is our listing of bills, general fund checks, cafeteria bills, earned income tax report from December 31st of 2021, secretary and treasurer report, and the Harlan Row Middle School activity report. Is there any discussion on any of those items? Okay.
With taxes, have they gotten that straightened out as far as mailing them in? There was an issue that.
Oh,
the
for
checks.
with the Dropbox?
Yes.
Yeah, it's been straightened out, and Christine deals with it still to this day. And we're working with every person, and CNN Bank has been great in helping us through that. So.
All right. Next up is personnel items. Here we have personnel. We have some 90/90 contracts. We have some retirements, support contracts, non-bargaining contracts. We have some updated job descriptions, an ESL instructor memo for increase of hours. And I think D should be off that, right? Or is that on there now?
Yeah, it should be off.
Okay, D should be stricken off at this time. Any discussion on the personnel, updated job description, and ESL memo?
Mr. Chairzinski,
Yes.
I'll speak on that. We currently provide ESL services to a number of students. We've had some increased need for hours, and we're also seeing some enrollments that are going to require more ESL services. We're just asking the board to move the half-time position that we already have to a full-time position, and this is still a 90/90 position for this year. I just wanted to clarify.
Do this a couple months ago?
Yeah, we actually went and did a half-time position a few months ago. Now we need it full-time. One thing I do want to point out is we did budget for this, a full-time position for this year. At the beginning of the year, we didn't necessarily need it, but as enrollments change and as we do testing for ESL, that determines the number of hours they need per week. And based upon that is when we add to ask for at least a half-time person. And now because of increased need, we need a full-time person. Okay.
What's the reasoning for the job description changes?
If I'm not mistaken, and Jenny worked on that, simply put, we identified numerous job duties and job roles that if there was ever an opportunity to work remotely, these jobs specifically we don't have any application for them to work remotely. And we just wanted to make sure that was clearly stated in the job descriptions.
Any other comments? Okay. Contracts and agreements. Revised NTC social services agreements.
How many social workers do we have from NTC now?
Currently, we have 2, and we're looking to increase to 5. And we're also going to be probably changing their job title, their roles, so that we identify what they do more accurately. They're going to be school support counselors. And there is potential that they could be available for our staff as well. And I believe that Ms. Rauscher brought up, make sure that counseling is available. I do want to reiterate that we do have a very extensive and robust EAP program that does have free counseling and counseling sessions, both in person and versus telehealth for all of our staff. And we make sure that we send out EAP notifications to them monthly so that they know what services we provide.
So how are those 3 that you said we currently have 3?
We currently have 2.
Do they go between the buildings?
Yeah, so they move around as needed. We have our administration and our school counselors make referrals or recommendations for them, and then they see the students as they needed. So their caseloads are full, and we're currently working with NTC to bring on board 3 more. Now, just like our own situation in terms of hiring staff right now is incredibly difficult. So they've started that process for us, and it could take a while for them to fully staff themselves, just because they got to find people that have the correct certifications.
Okay. The next one is the graduation requirements that was discussed earlier. Any more discussion on that? That's again a first read. Okay. Curriculum and instruction items. We do have the 2022-2023 draft for the school calendar for next year. We also have the 2022 senior trip, the 2023 senior trip, the 2024 senior trip, and the history club trip request for spring of 2023.
I would just like to thank everyone for turning them in early and planning ahead and giving the kids a chance to earn the money and fundraise.
Yeah,
instead of throwing it at the last minute.
That was a request from the board, and we wanted to make sure we met that need. Moving forward, the only policy requirement that the board has to move on is actually approving just the dates of those trips. One request was that an administrator attend any overnight trips of significant days, and that will happen moving forward. So an administrator will be attending those. I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
School board member attend the Ireland one?
I believe that's our location for a board retreat.
Sure.
Board retreat, yeah.
Are there any, to the 2022-2023 school calendar, any changes that we should note, or anything that is different for next year's calendar?
Natalie, no, it's relatively the same as this year's calendar. There's no significant changes. We pretty much plugged and played last year's calendar. We did have a calendar committee meeting on January 5th. Mr. Siscano ran that meeting. I think we had about 15 to 20 people attend. We support staff, administrators, and teachers. They all were able to give their input. We did talk about several things, but nothing significantly changed on the calendar.
And Mr. Toscano said that the first 2 days would be cohorted like last time, so you have cohort A and B starting again.
That tends to be a very positive received way to start the school year. We anticipated, 2 years ago doing that because of the pandemic. We did it this year because we really wanted to reiterate some things and get people to understand the expectations of school and probably reintegrate them into what school was about. And it's usually positively received because it helps them have a little bit more direct time with students. It's not 100% received, I will tell you that, but we're going to go with the majority on this one.
How many parents attend parent-teacher conferences?
I think I'll take a stab at it, and then if you guys want to chime in. I think at the elementary level, there's a very high percentage, and that's really the significant group that we're trying to target. And then in the middle school, it might be a little bit less, maybe 50%, and then the high school, maybe more. Depends on the grade level. 6th grade has good, and it drifts as you get to high school. Yep. And Mr. Mosier and I have talked about turning parent-teacher conference nights into more of a, a showcase night where parents can come and see the work that's been done and showcase what the high school offers. So we've done that several times now. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Like days off though, like whole days off?
And considering that year the teachers are full during the day, even considering that we did still offer some parents the opportunity to connect via Zoom. We did have some parents connect via Zoom this year, but we still had very full schedules. What we try to do is offer an evening and a day to fit the parents' schedules.
Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
Item 13, transportation items, addition of 2021-2022 driver lists. Is there any discussion on that? Okay. Next one is the building and grounds items. We have the lighting project RFP that was brought to our attention, and then the Sunday facility use request, which it looks like there's on here a wrestling tournament. I think it's a Chadsandoni the wrestling tournament. And then, like always, the local police basketball workouts, I think. Any discussion on that? Okay. Item 15 is the revised 2022 school board meeting dates. This was brought to our attention after we passed the last one that we needed to have it so our bills could properly be paid, if I'm correct.
Yeah, Mr. Cherzanowski, that's correct. I think doing every other Tuesday was a great idea. It really kept us meeting very consistently. But we did overlook the fact that if we met and voted in the fourth week of every month, we wouldn't be able to pay our bills on time.
Jenny figured that out.
Jenny and Georgetta figured that out. So we do want to pay our bills. We don't want to be delinquent. So we needed to revise that for us.
Okay. Any questions on the new board calendar? Okay. And then we have the revised Athens Area School District Health and Safety Plan, January 2022. I would guarantee there's some discussion on this. All right, go ahead.
It's been a great meeting, guys. Motion. Just kidding. So I did provide for everyone our currently approved health and safety plan and it wrote marker on the top current. That is from July 2021. You also have with you the current flow chart for contact tracing, isolation, and quarantine based upon the CDC recommendations, which would fit in our current health and safety plan, because that is both PA, Department of Health, and CDC recommended, which is what we were following. And then also you have a revised health and safety plan that outlines some changes that we've made. One change that might be more aesthetic is changing it into bullet form so that it can be read easier than paragraphs.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys want to go through this by section.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Do you want to go through the changes or do you want to go through the sections?
Sections 3 is the main part. Nothing changed in 1 or 2. Those are more perfunctory types of answers. Section 3 would be where things have probably been revised.
So how do you guys want to go about? You want to just work our way down or do you want to?
I say we work our way down.
Okay,
If that's okay
fine.
with everybody else.
That's
Start
fine.
at 3A and go down.
Start right at 3A.
Yeah.
All right. So do you want to go ahead, Greg, since?
Yeah. So if you look at the revision and you can compare it to the original, nothing's really changed. I did try to rewrite some of the sentences into bullet points. The only thing that I would say is the very last bullet point, recommended changes will be discussed and approved by the school board at scheduled school board meetings when necessary. The board is in charge, like the board approves the health and safety plan. So that was just probably more of this is kind of practical because if we made any changes that would come to the board anyway.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know, Cindy. Yeah, we have it. I think she's.
Do you need it? Yeah. Maybe Clint can pull it up. He might be able to.
So I guess we can go through each letter and then if there's any discussion, if not, we'll move on.
So obviously, letter A, 3A is the universal and correct wearing of masks. And I think currently, face coverings are recommended and encouraged, but are the personal choice of students and preference of students and families. So is there any, I think, John, would you like to discuss that?
Does anybody have any discussion about that? No concerns here. Natalie, Chris. Okay. I want to make sure everybody gets their voice and be able to heard.
Mr. Chair-Skansky, if I could just interrupt
Yeah,
real
go
quick.
ahead.
The whole purpose was this, try to set ourselves up with some of the recommendations that have been shared from other school districts in discussions with superintendents, in discussion with stakeholders throughout the state. And obviously, this is just the bar to start this discussion.
Yep.
This doesn't have to be the final product,
Okay.
obviously.
Letter B, Craig.
Yeah, so modifying facilities to allow physical distancing. The statement's simple. The Athens Area School District will promote physical distancing where possible. That is probably the most accurate and honest statement we can make because of we can't, like we have issues with class sizes in terms of square footage and also the class size. So not all of our buildings have the same exact square footage for every classroom, and not every classroom is exactly the same number of students in. So we try to promote physical distancing where possible. And we also we allow the latitude of our teachers to build those classrooms out the way they see fit and comfortable.
If you guys have something, just chime right in, okay? Otherwise, I'll keep going. All right, go ahead, Craig.
3C, hand washing and respiratory etiquette. Nothing really changed at all from the previous, from the July health and safety plan. It just came into bullet form and I condensed it. Well, we still have and we will continue to promote healthy hygiene habits, washing hands, using hand sanitizer when you can't wash your hands, and keeping signs up for healthy measures, you know, that we always have.
Makes sense.
None of those have changed.
Okay.
3D, cleaning and maintaining healthy facilities, including improving in ventilation. We'll continue to assess and replace HVAC filters when necessary. That happens. Jeff does that. Jeff will replace the unit filters on a schedule, I think, when necessary. Yeah, page 5 of 9, Clint. The district will provide cleaning and sanitizing solutions and materials to classrooms and employees for cleaning as needed. We've left that to the teachers at their request. They do request it, we'll provide it, it's not a problem. Provide routine cleaning of facilities, classrooms, buses by employees. We still clean all those facilities. We still do periodic cleaning throughout the day of high traffic areas, wiping down handrails and certain high touch areas. The district has installed bipolar ionization units to all HVAC units to improve indoor air quality and reduce the risk of numerous airborne illnesses, including SARS-CoV-2. Those were installed over the summer prior to the start of the school year. They're up and running. We actually have McClure coming to take a look at them again, maybe see how they're working or functioning. I'm not sure when that's happening, but I think it's happening in the near future. Am I right, Jeff? Yeah, exactly. Real near future, like last month. Great. I knew they were coming. How about that?
I have a question about the buses. Who's wiping those down? Because they're still mandatory to wear the mask on buses, correct?
Yep. So bus drivers still have foggers available to them, and we asked them to do it like once every other day.
How do we know they're doing them?
I'm not watching them, but we can touch base with them.
That our responsibility, or is that the contract?
We have the foggers, and then we ask the contractors to do that. Contact tracing in combination with isolation and quarantine in collaboration with the state and local health departments. This is probably where the majority of the revisions landed. The district will exclude from school any staff or student member who have tested positive for COVID-19 or are showing symptoms of COVID-19 in accordance with Title 28 PA Code Chapter 27. That is, I believe, something that we must follow. The district will complete all PDE and or Pennsylvania Department of Health reporting of cases as required. Just so everyone is aware, we report weekly by building all cases and quarantines to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. That is required of us. A COVID dashboard will be regularly updated with current active COVID-19 positive cases and a weekly summary of COVID-19 cases and quarantines by building. And this will be located on the district website. We do that. We have done that for years. And it is updated to include all of the building cases and quarantines that can be accessed at the district website under the COVID-19 tab.
When is that updated, Craig?
And it's updated Mondays. And for the cases and quarantines per building, and then it's updated almost regularly on a daily basis for all active cases.
For Title 28 Code Chapter 27,
Yes, ma'am.
what is it that we're following? Because under that code, it says a positively diagnosed person or animal with a disease that has been shown and or fever are what is to be followed.
Thank you, Cindy. This has always been something, so it's nothing new in our practices. You know, any kid that let's talk pre-pandemic, any kid with a fever had to go home and stay home until they were fever-free without medication for 24 hours. So for this, the way we've talked about it at the superintendent level is anyone who has a communicable disease, which COVID is identified as one, anybody who's expressing or showing symptoms of a communicable disease such as COVID. So that's something that was discussed with IU superintendents. It's been shared with us numerous times from the Department of Health too. So if you hop down here, COVID-19 positive students or staff will be excluded for a minimum of 5 days and will be required to wear a mask for 6 to 10 days after, on days 6 through 10, just to complete that 10-day cycle.
Mr. Stage, so with the recent Supreme Court ruling against masks, how can we enforce masks even in this case?
I don't know. I don't have a perfect answer for you. I was trying to elicit similar responses from other districts. Keeping masks on as an extra safety mitigation coming back from COVID would be a good
If they choose not to wear a
practice.
mask, though, would they continue the 10-day quarantine or
Yeah, they
isolation?
Yeah, so if you look at the bottom, anybody who's unable or unwilling can complete the full 10-day quarantine at home. For students, they'll have access to all learning materials and support from a learning loss teacher. And when they come back, they'll have access to an after-school tutor. So we still try to provide support for them.
I'm a little confused though. So if they quarantine for the 5 days, are symptom-free, no fever, and asymptomatic,
Right.
then they're out of the realm of masking.
Well, we still ask for them to put a mask on.
But that's
for days
just
6
a
to 10.
recommendation.
It's a recommendation.
Correct. It is
yeah.
not a mandate. It is not a
Nope.
law. It is not an
Not
order.
a mandate or a law.
Okay.
Yep, correct.
Required differently, although the Supreme Court case said that the Department of Health under those circumstances, and it was still with a procedural issue, but we actually could require it as a mandate. And I think isn't that what we are saying, is that it was going to be mandatory for 10 days. I thought that's what this is saying.
That's what the Supreme Court said. The Supreme Court said that the Department of Health didn't have the authority to do it, but the district does. I mean, we can do it on a case-by-case basis. So far, it's never been tested. And the injunctions that were filed, no, that's not true. There's been about 5 injunctions filed against individual school districts, and as far as I know, they've all been thrown out. The last one I know, Judge Brandon threw it out of federal court several months ago. So, I mean, it's there, and the problem is, as I read it, you can correct me if you read it too, Chris, they weren't going to let the government paint it with one brush. In other words, everybody's going to wear a mask forever. And I think we'll do it much different than how we define it. That's my analysis, but I don't know either. I mean, we're all guessing what the hell is going to happen. Until it happens, we don't know.
I do think that there are some more recent cases. I think the Erie School District is maybe facing a case about whether they're allowed to mask or not. I don't know the outcome of that. I don't think it's been determined at this point in time. So
There are 9 schools in Erie County that are.
all Erie County schools. Yeah. So I'm aware of that. Part of this was, a mitigation strategy to maybe help get kids back in school faster, and staff, I guess, would also be good, but also try to create a safe environment to some degree. If the board wishes to change that, so be it. We will work around all recommendations and the health and safety plan. So if we
So is that from the positive date of the test, or is that?
So
how would that
that's
work?
determined as day of symptoms or day of test.
Okay, so if you
it's
had symptoms
symptomatic,
3
it's date
days
of
sooner.
symptoms. Yeah, and then if they're asymptomatic, it's date of test.
Presenting symptoms prior to that. Yes.
Yes.
As in.
Fever or.
With everything we've always done. I mean, if a kid's
That's
warm, they
always
go to
been
the
the same.
nurse and they have a fever, they go home.
Okay.
Since we
Okay.
brought kids back to school in 2020, that's been the case. Yeah.
That would be a symptom.
Yeah. Right.
Excuse me just a second. One thing I want to share, if anyone grabs an old section of 2427, it doesn't mention COVID. But the Department of Health just added that. It's number 17. If you take it off their website, it's there. So, I don't want people to think we got a conspiracy thing here going, because if you read the books, it's not in it. Okay, but when I looked it up today and saw it wasn't there, I said, we better get on the computer and check the current one, and it is there. Okay, thank you.
So that's how we would handle COVID positive students and staff. We'd also recommend that they can't return to school or work until they're fever free without medication for at least 24 hours, which I think is probably coming from the CDC recommendations too as well. We did try to outline close contacts will be determined by using the 3 foot when both parties have a mask, 6 feet when they don't, or one or both don't. We just wanted to create some definition because when we went mask optional, it created some confusion as to, are we using 3 foot or are we using 6 foot? So we tried to define that as such. If in this scenario, that just would only mean that we would help us identify who the close contacts were to notify parents in those situations. And then based on symptom status, they would stay or not stay.
Due to the nature of the virus,
right?
Wouldn't it just simply be more of our best interest to say there was a child in 3rd grade who's positive? Please watch your children for symptoms. And if your child is symptomatic, keep them home.
Well,
because that kid could have been in the room, but at the same time, could have been in lunch from another classroom.
Right.
You can't tell.
We do contact trace
Okay.
in from the lunchroom too, Mrs. Cooper. We do try to have like assigned seating. Mrs. Rhodes and I worked on this a lot. For Lynch is a rather small building with a high population of students. And so she tries to, and the teachers, it's a collaborative effort to group the students that sit closely together in the classroom to where they sit in the cafeteria as well. Is that pretty accurate, Mrs. Rhodes? Okay. In terms of contact tracing, we've all, other than Mrs. Rhodes, all taken the course on how to be contact tracers. Not a course we ever wanted or thought we would have to take, but I think Mrs. Rhodes has caught up pretty well. We would give her an honorary degree at this point. Anybody disagree with that? Right. So we were trying to determine what would define a close contact so that we could notify parents and let them know.
Is the guidelines that it's required or is it recommended?
All this is, there's no require, like I think for, well, if it's our health and safety plan, it would be required. We would, I mean, we should say required if we're going to have it, because that would leave some gray. But the CDC and the Department of Health, they're all like, at this point, it's a lot of it is just recommendations. So at that point, like, we're just trying to build something that we feel is appropriate. And like I said, this is the starting of the conversation.
What's the definition of the close contact time period?
Yeah,
Is it the
I
time
saw
period?
that.
Is
It's
it
15 minutes.
It's 50. Is it from the
60
day
to
they were
close.
symptomatic, or is it the day they were
48,
positive?
48 hours prior to symptom onset.
Okay.
That we would identify any close contacts.
Is it possible that this may change throughout the life of the health and safety plan, where we may not want to reference the specifics here, but just reference this someplace else, so that if we do make changes, right?
See it.
Yeah, we haven't documented something, but I'm concerned with some of the level of detail we're putting in the health safety plan, that things may change. That do we want to have more flexibility?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Owen, because the other comment was there wasn't enough detail in
Yeah,
it.
no,
So now it's okay.
But I compare
It's
it to some
okay.
of the other schools.
Yeah, I'm good.
They've addressed this in a more simple.
Yeah, so we can put it in a flow chart and kind of identify it through that too as well. And we have flow charts made. Obviously, we made one for what we're currently doing, and it didn't make anybody who's doing contact tracing's job any easier right now. In fact, I think if you look at that, it's a pretty complicated if-then statement. But we can remove that if everyone so desires. I'd rather have everyone chime in on that, and we can put it somewhere else, and we would make that noted. We did note that parents and guardians will be notified if their child is identified as a close contact. And then asymptomatic students who were determined to be a close contact will not be excluded from school, but will be required to wear a mask for 10 days and be asked to monitor symptoms. We didn't put anything about testing in there. However, the Department of Education did notify us on December 31st that if we wanted to participate in the Test to Stay program, that we did not have to have universal masking. I think I talked about that earlier, that you had to be universally masked. That is no longer a requirement. So that's another discussion for the board if they wish to have it.
Wasn't there also the pool testing too? That
Yeah, the
was
pool testing, and we don't have to participate in the pool testing as well. All that would be parental choice. I want to make sure I stress that. That would be parental choice.
Just to weigh in here, I think we should remove this bullet. I don't think any asymptomatic students should be required to mask or optionally quarantine.
I agree.
I think we should keep it with those students who are have symptoms, not those who are asymptomatic.
Anybody else?
That's up to debate.
I would err on the side of, we've got high caseloads right now, so I'd err on the side of, I would recommend that we keep this language in there.
My recommendation is that we have this reviewed by our insurance carrier to make certain that it passes with them, that if there is an issue, we're going to have coverage. But I would agree with Natalie that, err on the side of caution and have a safe school. We should try to do everything that we can to have safe schools. And, if this is, because this is not what the CDC is recommending. CDC is still currently recommending quarantining. And so, so that's not following what the CDC recommendations are, which is what we've generally followed. So, that's why I think we should make certain that we should have it reviewed, hear from our insurance companies, make sure that they said that that's okay. And, but, with regards to wearing a mask, even if you're asymptomatic, there's no, whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated. I agree with that. I mean, and I think I don't disagree with what this proposal is, but I just want to make certain that, we have coverage if there is an issue for our school.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I think in that situation with asymptomatic students, I was identifying with whether they were vaxxed or unvaxxed. I'm vaccinated or unvaccinated, because I do think that was something that we should kind of steer clear of, because I think what we've learned is vaccination status does not preclude them from contracting COVID. It may reduce their symptom onset or it may reduce their severity of symptoms. I'm not a doctor. Please don't take this and put this in a medical journal. It's just observational stuff that we've had here in this community. So I did go with the do not need to quarantine if masked for 10 days. That's where that came from, and that's why I put it in there. And that it was coming from the CDC. I just didn't indicate whether there was a vaccination status to that or not.
So if, even now in public, now in work, we can return after 5 to 7 days. So what if we lowered it down, not to 10, but to go 5 days or 7 days?
That's at the will of you guys. I would be happy to make any
I
revisions
mean,
you
they're
guys
still masking, we're
agree
still
upon.
taking the side of caution, but yet the 10 days, I mean, they're not even doing that in places of employment now. We're down to 5.
But are they quarantining?
They're coming back after the 5th day when they didn't have any symptoms.
Right, but this is not requiring any quarantine. This is not, if you're a close
The
contact,
asymptomatic
there's no, and so if you're a close contact and you're not vaccinated under this scenario.
They're saying
under
10 days.
They're not required to quarantine for any period.
I have a data question. I have a data question. So if masks are protecting us and someone feels that they're at risk and all the children are asymptomatic, why doesn't that person just wear a mask? Because how can we judge if you're sick, if you're asymptomatic? You have nothing wrong with you. I guess, I'm sorry, that's just my question.
Right. My response is everybody has the choice to wear a mask if they wish.
But we're saying that it's required.
I think as a mitigation strategy, I do think that. But again, just pick the middle ground. And if that's where people want to go, if we land there, if not, we certainly could change this and simply just follow the CDC recommendations in whole, as maybe probably some others may suggest, and that would be fine as well. And we'll move forward with whatever.
That's what we've done from the beginning, isn't it?
Yeah, we've followed the CDC recommendations.
And that's what I'm saying. This is not following the CDC. So this is saying that people don't have to quarantine. And I'm so this is saying that asymptomatic students or staff do not have to quarantine, but they would be required to wear masks. And so I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I'm just saying that from my standpoint, I want to make certain that we have coverage. Because we've always been following what the guidelines have been. That's what from the beginning. That's what we've been doing.
I did get that email from CM Regent from this summer, and
I just think maybe before we vote on this, if we could have that.
I can share this with Mr. Sumner, who could share it with CM Regent. This summer, we did ask, what was our liability if we because if we decide not to wear masks, even though CDC or PD recommends, is there any type of insurance liability? And I think the reason why we chose mask optional, I think, was that CM Regent stated that if we recommend following the CDC guidance as a best source to pass the pandemic, they are currently emphasizing layered tactics for protecting unvaccinated students. But as long as they are documenting the safety measures they do take, they won't jeopardize coverage. If another government mandate comes out and they do not comply with that, they would then jeopardize their coverage. That was what we got from our insurance provider in July. I could double check to make sure that has not changed. And I think that's what you're asking.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
So this bullet right here, would this be where that test to stay would come into play if we did choose to do test to stay?
If you chose to do that, it would probably be part of that. Yeah, absolutely. Somewhere in there. I didn't plan for that.
I'm just saying that would be another option.
If
they did test to stay, that they would not have to wear the mask. According to some of the tests to stay I've seen, is they still test in the morning before they go, they test. If they're negative, they continue on and they do it for those 10 days.
Yeah. So when we looked into that, we did get with Ginkgo, which is the state's provider. We will not get any more than 20% of our school's population in test kits. So I believe that's 400 test kits that would be at our disposal. And I'm not sure if we would get any more allotments.
But that way it goes by what Cindy's saying though.
Yeah.
With how do you tell? You tell by testing. But 20% you said?
Yeah, that was the information that was provided to us in the last time we looked at it. Early November, but I don't think that's changed.
But that's not guaranteeing that we get all 20% at once.
Well,
Correct.
Yeah, no. I don't know if they come out in 2 shipments or 1 or 3.
we don't have them, it's not an option. I mean, you know what I mean? That's,
So I do know one district that has applied for them and has yet to receive them, and they applied before the Thanksgiving break.
it's an option if we ever get them though.
Mhm.
That could help some people. I agree, 10 days is a long time.
Let's keep going, and then I'll share whatever thoughts I have. And, obviously, asymptomatic students, we talked about that. Symptomatic students will be asked to quarantine for 5 days, and then they can return to school, again, wear a mask for days 6 through 10. Household contacts, this is where there's a positive case in the whole home and someone cannot isolate from that positive person, would be quarantined for 10 days. And that would be 5 days for the positive person and 5 days of isolation or quarantine. Parents may decide upon notification of close contact to exclude their students for the full 10 days. The absences for those dates of quarantine will be legally excused days. I think that should be in there because I think parents sometimes are worried about it becoming a truancy issue or them being unexcused absences. And we've made measures to allow them. We can note them as excused absence because of the pandemic. All students.
Sorry, Craig, can we just back to the household close contacts?
Sure.
Why are we differentiating that compared to just other contacts? Is there a different situation here?
I'll be honest with you. This is from what we see every day. I would say the majority of every COVID case we have starts in the home. Even when we have close contacts and we close contact those kids who are getting it, whose parents or household members are getting it, the probability of them getting it is extraordinarily high. Whatever, I have my principals here. They can nod. You guys can chime in anytime. This is not a.
I think the difference here is if you're close contact, I'm sitting next to a class, I'm then removed because I'm positive, so you're no longer have access as me. Whereas if we're in the home together, you're still exposed to me every day.
Yeah.
So even if you're asymptomatic at the time, the likelihood that I'm going to pass it to you goes up every day.
And we've seen that happen.
Class together, that's where the difference is. I'm no longer near you, so you know if they have the opportunity to get it.
Yeah. And that's why we talked about that with a group of superintendents on Friday. That is where we're seeing a lot of these, close contacts become positive is from household contact. So that was included because of what we've seen.
Are we notified for a close contact?
Yeah, parent, we're fortunate. Obviously not every parent notifies us until sometimes after the fact, but we do know that they would say the overwhelming majority of parents are really good about letting us know that there's COVID in the home and we close contact and send the child home. They're quarantined for that period of time. When kids are in quarantine and do contract COVID, there's a very high likelihood it's because of being a household exposure.
So you're saying that the spread or contact in school is almost nothing. Like, I shouldn't say nothing.
It's not nothing, but
it's not nothing, but the number of children who have been a contact in one of your schools that you then quarantine for 5 days and then mask for 10 days, what's the percentage of them that ever become symptomatic and actually are sick? Is that a high percentage? Or you're saying that the ones that get it from home do tend to get sick, but that's just a closer contact? That's the question. So if my kid's sent home, which has only happened once, thank God, in 2 years, I know a lot of people have dealt with much more, never ended up being symptomatic. But that's just my one. Does anybody have any data on that?
I can say in my school, from the data that I have in our spreadsheet over 2 years, I don't think in the high school, any student I've sent home as a close contact has ever become positive because of sitting in class. But it has highly been related to mom or dad calling in, saying that they're COVID positive, the kid lives in the home, they should have taken that. They definitely, usually it was 3 to 5 days. Well, I think there's a reason why we want to allow that asymptomatic close contacts that are at school now. Why we're saying we're going to allow.
A lot of them stay. And just do that.
As long as they're asymptomatic.
And just going back to the previous bullet, I would suggest that when we talk about symptoms or symptomatic, that we may also want to reference Title 28 PA Code Chapter 27, which lists out specific symptoms. I fear that if we don't list out specific symptoms, it could be open to interpretation of what symptoms, what would equate to a symptomatic student. I know it lists out, for example, a fever of 102 or other symptoms like that fit within the law to be able to quarantine students. So I fear that if we keep it too generic and just say symptoms or symptomatic, it could be open to interpretation.
I'm fine with, we can do that. I mean, we have a flow chart
I think it's
that we use on our
CDC as well, I believe,
COVID-19
yeah.
website. So
Some of the other school health and safety plans, they reference the code in this section, right, where they say it's symptoms per, I think it's section 7227, I think, or 2772.
yeah, I can.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, there's a big question about what symptoms are, especially now with Omicron. And they're saying it could be a runny nose, right?
Scratchy throat. Scratchy throat was one that I wake up every morning with a scratchy throat.
Okay.
So the last couple bullets are,
I think we're on, yeah.
making sure that we notify parent, like that when we do have a quarantine or isolation situation, that, access to the materials, a learning loss instructor that we have, and then after school tutoring when they return. And also, we wanted to make sure that we give a parent option. Like, so there are parents and students who choose not to wear a mask. We wanted to make sure that, they would give them an opportunity to complete their quarantine, but also not be counted as an unexcused absence. So we put that, I made sure that was put in there.
How do we differentiate unable from unwilling?
So in some situations, sometimes in learning support situations, we have students that physically are unable to wear a mask, and unwilling, we would say that they choose not to wear a mask.
So are we still respecting medical exemptions in these situations?
So for this school year, we have addressed a couple mask exemption situations with, in terms of students have had to quarantine. We've asked them to quarantine, and most parents have been good about it. We feel like that because they could not wear a mask, then they should go with the quarantine. And that would be a choice. I think the exemption might be a choice, or they might be unable. So we do offer that opportunity. They still have access to their education. So that's what we've done. We've been pretty consistent with it this year in terms of how we've dealt with those unique situations. They are unique because they don't happen very often. So the only other part of that is, while I worked this out, there was a couple thoughts behind that. I did use some administrator feedback. I used several people's feedback. Thank you to the board members that shared their feedback. The premise that I went off of was, we're not trying to abandon all safety mitigation measures. However, we do recognize through some of the observations that we've had since March of 2020 that, keeping kids in school should be a priority, and that while COVID is happening and students are getting COVID, our data suggests that it's not exclusively happening within our school. We do have to recognize that our staff, we want to keep our staff healthy and safe. So we do feel like some of these measures would keep everyone safe. They're not overly on one side of the fence or the other. I feel like this is kind of in the middle. I do feel like the risk of COVID is very real, and I understand that, and I recognize that people have different feelings about that, but the value and reward of keeping students in school learning outweighs that, and the interruption in instruction is creating some deficits in learning. It's also creating behavior issues. It creates interruptions to their daily life. As most people, we relish in routine, and this does create situations where we have to leave our routine. That's kind of our thoughts on the process. And if I encourage anyone to speak about that in terms of my administrative team. They deal with this. I do say, I have witnessed firsthand numerous times that this contact tracing, quarantining, and isolation is something that consumes their entire day, multiple days a week. And I would like them to be instructional leaders, but right now we are just contact tracers. Oh, there's no doubt about that. And I'm not saying that as a plea to go completely off the rails, but I recognize that there is COVID and COVID will happen. However, we do have to prioritize the instruction of our students in a safe environment. And that's why I try to keep this in mind. I do try to keep our staff in mind as well. And this will make some of them unhappy and some of them unhappy as well. And we're on that never ending pleasing seesaw. So you're going to please some and you're not going to please all. And I'm using what we know and what we have learned since March of 2020. The last part of this is I do also suggest and would like to make a suggestion that if the board does not wish to accept 3E, that there is the fact that you could simply accept the CDC guidance in whole, and we would work that in as an alternative. That would give you guys an option to choose from if you wish to do so. That's your discussion, and you may have that. And if you want to circle back to that after I finish through the rest of the bullet points, that's fine as well. If we look at 3F, diagnostic and screening testing, we will promote diagnostic and symptom screening by parents. We have a chart who are symptomatic or have suspicion of COVID-19 exposure prior to arriving at school campus. We say that often, make sure you check your kid for symptoms before you send them off to school. Fever, headache. Right. No, this is a symptom chart. It's 1 of A, 2 of B. Yes, yeah. Efforts to provide vaccinations in school. I know, Mr. Owen, you've expressed your thoughts on this one. District may share vaccination COVID testing information from local health organizations on the district website and social media. So if Guthrie asks us, hey, could you post this? I feel like, as a community, we should do that. The district may offer vaccination clinics for staff if needed or requested. Some have asked if we would host a booster clinic for them because many of them are vaccinated and some may need it. But we do have access to, more than I can count places you can get your vaccination.
For that last bullet, does that require additional board action before we want to do that? Or is this bullet give the district the authority to?
This would give us the authority to do that. It would be for clinics for staff. Yeah.
And these clinics will be held in our facilities?
Yeah. And so we do health screenings, biometric screenings. We've offered the flu shot in the morning before school to any, we've done this in the past. This has been done for decades. So we just thought that would probably be a natural course of action.
So we have offered vaccinations before in
Not-
school buildings?
Not COVID, no.
Not COVID,
Not
but
COVID.
flu?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
for decades. Decades, we've offered the flu shot to staff. They can come in and we have they just come in and get their flu shot and go to.
So this is just in addition to the flu, where now we could offer COVID?
I don't see it being much different than that in the future. 3H, appropriate accommodations for students with disabilities. Nothing changed on that bullet point. I just turned it into a bullet point. Coordination with state and local health officials. Nothing really changed on that as well. We will always participate in collaborative efforts with our local and state health officials in responses to the pandemic when contacted directly. The district will continue to follow mandated guidelines. If there's anything mandated, we would follow those. And I think that would be something that we would be required to do in terms of, legally and in terms of our insurance as well. So that pretty much concludes everything. So, final thoughts, discussion. I know it's a lot to digest.
Thank you for putting this all together.
Absolutely.
This is a lot of time.
So again, this is a work session, so
let's work. We
can digest it, we can take a look at it. Talk, obviously we're gonna have more discussion before we vote on it. The way I look at it, I thought I saw 3 points that we discussed quite a bit. The asymptomatic piece, the unable, unwilling, I think I heard Mr. Owen say, and then the vaccination clinics. Any discussion on those 3? Go back to those.
Yeah, just to generally reiterate, my feeling that the plan, and I believe we talked about this, and I'm going to echo a lot of what Mr. Sage said. I think we need a plan that does everything possible to keep kids in school. I think we need to maximize personal choice wherever necessary, wherever possible. And I believe we need to do whatever possible to not differentiate students who choose to take different actions to protect themselves.
So from the beginning, we have always gone with, to be consistent. We've done what CDC and Department of Health and Department of Education has suggested, and that's been our go-to. Every time somebody has come to us with what are we gonna do? That has been consistent, and I think we need to keep consistency. So I would like to see that we just follow whatever in that one section that we were talking about, that so that we're all covered, because I want to make sure that there's nothing that in our insurance that's going to affect the taxpayer for any kind of lawsuit or liability.
Sure.
But is that where you could add, I mean, that's why I keep going back to test to stay, because it does give you choice. If you're testing negative, you could, still gives the choice if you have the testing.
But what happens when we don't get the testing? If we only get 10 tests and we need 50? I mean, I don't know. I would love to see the state of test.
I think that's keeping the kids in more with that test to stay.
The test to stay.
Yeah.
But we can't guarantee that we're going to.
If they choose. If they choose it.
I think I would, echo what Kathy Jo said. I would like to, to continue to follow recommendations that we're getting from CDC. I'm not a health professional, and that's not my training. So I feel that I need to listen to the health professionals, that this is their area of expertise. So that would be my take, is I want to follow that guidance as they are sharing it.
Yeah. The other piece is we have 3 board members that aren't here tonight as well. So, I mean, that's where we could take a look at it, what Craig has presented before us. Take a look at it over the next 2 weeks and come up with any questions and discussion that we have before we vote on it as well.
Is this something we need to vote on next meeting, or is it something we could table to the next work session when we have all the board members here? What's
The health and safety plan needs to be reviewed this month. Reviewed does not mean approved, I guess. You would have to say you reviewed it. Everything would stay in place until you guys change the health and safety plan. So in terms for the ESSER AARP requirement, this has to be reviewed every 6 months. So this month would be the month for that.
So if we did not take action, it would still, where we are now, which is optional masking, but we stay with our quarantine protocols we have today. Close contact.
That's very correct. Yep.
So there's no change.
But is the quarantine protocol as it was prior, or are we now to the 5 days, so we can do the 5 days with the CDC?
That's the flow chart, right? The flow chart from last week, basically, right?
Yeah, we do what the flow chart says.
Okay.
Because
Not the prior.
The CDC
It wasn't 10 prior. It's now CDC is the 5 days, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So this is that flow chart is
14 to 10. 14. Yep.
This is a reflection of the CDC update to quarantine isolation. What we have in our current health and safety plan is that we would follow the recommendations of the Department of Health and the CDC recommendations. And remember, so that's why this was created. Conversation has happened numerous times about whether we are going to shorten quarantines, identify vaccinated versus unvaccinated. So if you follow the CDC guidelines, you would keep the vaccinated versus unvaccinated status.
How many tests would we have used? I mean, what's the estimate of tests that we would use in a month?
We'd be done in 2 weeks.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, we'd be done in 2 weeks.
With no guarantee that we'd ever get any more.
Yeah, no. I can contact them and see how many we get.
Okay.
But if we quarantined 80 people and tested them for 5 days, that would be all of our tests.
Yeah.
And that would
if
be
they all choose
that
it,
would
yes.
be 2 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks, because some of them overlap, because some of them happen on Thursday and they're back by Monday.
weekends.
Yeah, the weekends count as 2 days.
Because under the test to stay, you have to test every day.
The way it worked is I think it would test on days 1, 3,
Yeah, it's not every
5. So 2, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks.
Okay. I wasn't trying to catch you on that.
No,
I was really asking the question.
Listen, I taught history, so doing math, you saw the smoke, right? I was rolling through my head. I'm like,
I thought
just
it
good
was the new
estimation.
math.
It's carry the one. I'm trying to carry the one. So yeah, that's probably what it'd be realistically. I do think that we did look at pricing that out. It would be, I think you can get 10,000 units for about $25,000 or $30,000. I think, I'm not entirely sure, but it is a really large, ugly looking number.
Has that changed at all with just haven't recently they're going to allow testing. You can get tests through your insurance company. Will be covered a certain
by
amount.
insurance, yeah,
Is any of that changing?
So I heard that healthcare, your insurance companies will have to cover at-home test kits. But my question to you is, where are you going to find one?
Right. Sure.
And that's not now, that's
Right.
Yeah.
weeks away.
It's not even, yeah, correct.
So how do you guys want to proceed then, I guess? Do you want to keep the language as it is and discuss it more? I guess that's the question.
Keep the language as is, discuss it more, and include the other 3 members that are not here.
Because we're not.
Currently, we're going to stay with the flow chart because this is what's on our health and safety plan. The only change would happen after January 25th if you guys decide to change or revise any parts of it.
What did we want the insurance companies to base on? CDC then, right?
What's that?
What did you want the insurance company?
I just wanted them to review our plan.
Okay.
I'd like them to review what is proposed and see what their recommendations.
I can ship that out to ARC Insurance Company tomorrow.
Is that what we're going to
Anything else?
Is that what you guys ready to agree to?
So what are we going to do then? Is it going to be for a possible next time or next meeting? Or are we going to table this and have another work session?
There should be some action taken at the 25th board meeting. I guess there's several options available. Just review the plan. We'll leave it as it lies. Make some sort of revision. A revision could be what's written in this, or revision B could be accept the CDC guidelines. I think that's probably where you guys are at.
So we could make the revision that day.
Or D, punt, review it, and then talk about it again in February or March.
I think
Your choice.
I think if our goal is to, I think we should get it done before that though. Get all the information, have the board members also that aren't here take a look at it. And if we need to make revisions that day, we can make revisions that day.
We can make revisions, sure.
I enjoyed my time. How about you guys?
No, yeah.
Good, thank you.
You did a lot of work, Greg.
Have we had any claims against the school, COVID related, because someone was sick as it stands today in the last 2 years?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Did we have any claims because any staff member or administrator was sick against the school district in 2 years?
No.
Okay.
And Jenny, I'm confident, but Jenny, I just wanted to give Jenny a nod. Okay.
But that's by going with what we've being covered by this, falling back onto.
So
We wouldn't have been covered under the mask code.
Yeah, we would have.
I think, I don't think,
Checked it, wasn't it?
I think you're going to, I think if you guys have any, if you're going to get sued, you're going to get sued. I think what you're worried about is insurance going to cover you in that situation.
Absolutely.
And I think
you can't ever stop a lawsuit.
Right, that's what I was trying. That's
yeah.
my point. You can't stop anyone from bringing a suit against you. It's just, is your insurance company going to pay the bill?
Correct.
Right. Yeah. Right. I was just trying to get to the heart of the matter. Thank you.
I have lots of people that ask me, how do you stop somebody from suing me? And
Haven't figured it out yet.
I haven't figured that out yet.
You defend it.
Sound like a plan then?
No cases have been brought against us yet.
Okay. I appreciate everybody, the comments and discussion though. I think that was good to discuss it out.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Okay. All right. Next item would be item 17, visitor comments.
If I can interrupt.
Yep, sorry.
Number 16, recommend changes. I missed one.
Okay.
We had someone speak to us on a spade and neuter facility down in Ulster a few months ago, asking for a tax exemption. And we had tentatively approved it. And the commissioners approved it. We got a call today and they want a resolution by the board approving their tax exemption. So I'm going to prepare one. I want you to add it to it. The board had actually given us permission.
Okay.
And I thought the commissioners approved it an assessment appeal. And they didn't. They just said it was okay for them and they're getting the township to do it and all that. So I will add that little resolution to and have it prepared for next meeting, if that's still your pleasure, okay?
Okay.
You don't have to.
An animal
I
shelter?
don't remember that.
Was it an animal
I don't
shelter?
remember it.
Pardon me?
An animal shelter?
Yeah.
It's that, it's in Ulster and they were leasing a building and they were gonna do some,
Shamrock was?
what's the name of it?
It was where Shamrock Lanes used to be in Ulster.
So next to the
It
Bradford
drops
County.
down. Yeah.
Next
Where
to
it went
the
down.
Bradford
Okay.
County
I don't know.
Legislative.
All right, we'll make sure we have it on the
I don't remember
agenda
that.
for
Yeah,
25th.
well, I'll get it to you.
Okay. So we're going to add that to the future board action item then.
I think put it under 15C or something like that.
15C?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember that, but okay.
The bowling alley.
All right. So visitor comments, name, address, organization which you represent, subject matter. It's requested that comments be kept to 3 minutes. Comments relative to private student or employee matters should be directed to the superintendent outside the meeting. Are there any visitor comments at this time? Yes. Okay. Hello.
Hello. Carolyn Knapp, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself right now. Some of my observations in your conversations tonight about the health and safety plan is, first one is I'm very concerned about the chemicals that you might be using in cleaning the school and in fogging the buses. I think sometimes subjecting our children to chemicals is far more dangerous than subjecting them to the COVID. So I think you should look into those chemicals and whether or not they have any problems with them. Even if they're approved by the FDA, the CDC, they still can be very harmful and toxic to the kids. The other question I had was, I would really like you to consider natural immunity somewhere in your health and safety plan. I believe that if a student comes and gets tested for natural immunity, provides that to the school, that all of this stuff that's going on, it should not be subjected to the student. They shouldn't have to wear masks. They shouldn't have to be quarantined. They shouldn't have to stay home. Because I think natural immunity, and I think the research shows it, that it's even more substantial than the vaccination is. And a lot of us have that already. The other thing is you're spending an awful lot of time, and I do commend you for spending a lot of time just taking care of contact tracing. And I think the whole thing is being consumed with it. And from my perspective, I think that the education is really not happening in the schools because of this. And I don't know how you're going to fix that or address that, but I think we're more worried about Johnny sitting there, her sitting there, than we are about them learning. And thank you for all your work. And I do appreciate it. And I know that it's a very difficult situation, but I think that our children are suffering right now, and our adults are as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other visitor comments?
I'm Donna Thrush. I live on the Milan Road, and I'm just speaking for myself. I jotted down a couple things as you were discussing the health and safety plan. I do think it's important that we keep students in school as much as possible. And there are students, I know one in particular, who has a medical exemption for a face covering. So if that student gets COVID and is out for the 5 days, and then days 6 to 10, do they have to make a choice of going against that medical exemption and wearing that mask, which causes them problems, her problems, or must she choose between doing that or staying at home and missing out on schooling. So I encourage you to think about those students, because like I know one, and I'm pretty sure there are probably more. I noticed in the definition of close contact in the revision that it talked about the 3 feet and the 6 feet. And typically, these plans specify a length of time. I think it's usually 15 minutes. You might want to think about adding that. Okay. Is the flow chart available online? I hadn't, okay.
There's a flow chart.
It's just that I hadn't seen it yet.
The one.
Discussing, yes. He's talking about
This
an
one he's talking about,
additional
right?
one.
I think she's talking about this one.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, well, I didn't know if I missed it or what. Yeah,
No, I will have it, if it changes, I haven't made the flow chart.
okay,
He's on it tonight.
okay. You're doing a good job. Okay, I wanted to make a comment about the CDC and following their guidelines and them being the whole go-to. I realize they are supposed to be the experts and the specialists, but they refuse to recognize natural immunity. I can't connect those two things. If they are specialists and they are experts and they are denying natural immunity, I can't put those two things together. That does not make sense to me. So that, to me, makes me wonder why and makes me question the CDC sometimes.
Probably a lot of that is why they only have recommendations.
Okay, and then I had a quick question on insurance. I'm wondering, are there one or two big companies that specialize in school insurance?
There's very few, actually.
There's very few, okay. All right, because as I was researching, I found a number of schools that are not doing any contact tracing or, and so I'm wondering, well, where are they getting their insurance? Maybe it's, I don't know. All right, may I have a bit of an extension to just.
I'm sorry. 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
I had comments from someone else, but I think she sent you an email.
We've gotten several emails, actually. Just recently, we just got a bunch of emails, though. Thank you. Any other visitor comments? Mr. Ryan, yes.
Jack Ryan, South Main Street. I have a couple comments. One is just on the meeting itself. I've noticed that the mics come in and out. Some people don't talk into the mic, and it's very difficult for us in the back to know what's going on and keep track of what's going on. So maybe it's a discipline, maybe it's technology, I'm not sure, but maybe we could work on that a little bit. That's why we come here, to listen to the meetings, and then we can't hear, and it's frustrating. Number two, suggestion on the board situation. Mr. Stage, you said you need to act on this health plan this month. Perhaps you could, this is just a suggestion, perhaps you could approve it as is, and then there's nothing against revising it in February. Is that correct? So, I mean, rather than rush through it, let's try to get it right. And if you could approve it as is and then say you're going to update it in February, maybe that'll buy you some time. Just a suggestion. Let's see. This is another suggestion. I like to see people here. We've had a few more lately since all this COVID stuff started. I think the input from the community is a good idea. We have a very good communication system when it comes to 2-hour delays and that kind of thing. I would suggest that we use that system to notify the community that we're having a board meeting tonight. It's just a suggestion. You might get some more people here. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. I think it is, but I want to comment next on the, I just want to agree with the whole comments on natural immunity. I myself have had COVID. I feel very comfortable with my immunity status right now. So I think the CDC is wrong on that. The purpose of vaccines is to stimulate your immune system and create immunity. Getting a disease typically does it the same thing and does it better. And lastly, I want to ask probably Mr. Barrett mostly. I hear this conversation about concern around lawsuits and stuff like that. I've heard anecdotally that there's never been one. I'm not sure if it's Pennsylvania or it's bigger than that, that there's never been a board member that's been sued and successfully. I don't know if that's true, but I would like maybe to look into that because I think maybe there's a little extra fear going on there than probably is needed. I understand, but there's no board member ever in the history of Pennsylvania is what I heard. I don't know if that's true. No, I'm not saying what he said. I'm saying, is that true? Is that
I don't believe that is true. I think school boards have been sued, and also, they can possibly get to their. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to take your thunder here, Pat, but they can get to beyond the immunities on certain occasions. But I think school boards have been sued, and they could actually get to specific board
Just to
members.
explain what we're concerned about and where Chris's questions came from earlier.
Okay.
The board has an insurance policy insuring the district and also insuring each one of them from negligence or doing something wrong. All right. Now we want to make sure that covers. If the board does an act that is contrary to law and possibly contrary to regulation, they could be exposing themselves to one or two things. One, they could get sued, and two, our insurance company wouldn't cover us. Okay? We might win, and you said, would we get sued successfully? That's not the issue. The issue is it could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars just to defend a lawsuit. And we want to make sure the taxpayers of Athens School District don't have to pick up that charge.
Okay. I appreciate that. Yes, I do. I'm just curious whether there's a lot of precedent there or if that's.
Well, COVID's not that old. You have a
Well,
two-year
I mean,
statute.
for any reason, for any reason. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
COVID is unique.
districts get sued all the time.
Okay.
Now, we don't have one pending right now, but I bet we've had, I don't know how many we've had since I've been solicitor, a lot of them.
Okay. All
We
right.
had kids that got hurt in the pool 4 or 5 years or 10 years ago. We got sued over that. We've got sued over.
I'm referring to board actions primarily. That's.
Well, it's usually not board actions, it's board inactions is what gets us sued.
Okay. All right. Well, that was just, again, I heard it anecdotally. I was just curious.
Thank you, Mr.
So,
Ryan.
thank you.
Thank you. Last call. Any other? Sorry. You're here. I see you. Sorry.
Well, because I got cut off before. So my concern is the PCR testing, 97% erroneous false positives. I'm also concerned with the contact tracing that's going on in our schools. So my recommendation is to come to a consensus here. I just read you about the testing and how expensive it is. And our tax-paying dollars has already spent 80 million by Wolf's hiring Ginkgo. So my biggest concern right now is if the CDC is not allowing us appropriate information, okay? Theirs has already said that 21,000 people have died post-injection, okay? It's a black box and a stop at 5 for the FDA, okay? We're also recommending that kids 5 to 11 be injected with no data. So who are we listening to? We're listening to the CDC. You're concerned with whether the CDC is producing good quality information. When you have 1 million people with adverse reactions and nobody is identifying it or taking the process to do that, other than maybe people like Pierre Corey, Peter McCullough, Robert Malone. Start looking at these people that are being censored. These are physicians that are working the front lines, okay? We need to identify where the problems are in the CDC. If we're going to, if we're starting at a stepping stone here at the base of our school and our children, we're all here to do no harm, okay? We're all here to do no harm. Look at the facts, look at the figures. We have to make a halt somewhere along the line. These vaccinations should have been stopped a year ago, and they keep going on. And now you want a booster in our school? I just came from a meeting in Clark Summit. The guys in the penitentiary there do a spit test. They don't do the PCR test, okay? So I think that we need to look at all these things. And please, again, show me the data that 5 to 11-year-olds need to be injected, okay? Where the data now is coming out with the myocarditis, and nobody's looking at that. You're not raising the issues. I know they're here at hand, and we have to start at the bottom, but we've been doing this for 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, okay. I was ready for my.
Wait, there's more.
Okay.
So
Thanks,
I have a couple of comments on the interaction during the discussion. So at one point there was a discussion about students contracting more often at home than they do in the school. They contract the COVID virus more likely at home. My question is, how do we know that? So I like to just to separate anecdotal evidence from analytic data. And so when you make a claim like that, my question is, how do we actually know that's happening? How do we know that's the case? Which leads to, and I'll give you a moment to answer that. If you'd like, don't feel obligated to answer it right now, but a good point of discussion. It would make it more transparent if we actually saw how you know that. Which leads to my next question about the liability issue. So if we're unsure or don't have a definitive way to prove whether students are contracting the virus in the school or at their home, then how could any other plaintiff prove that? From a forensic standpoint, there would be no grounds to be able to say, I got COVID and I got COVID because of your mask policy. There'd be no forensic evidence to be able to link those two cases. So I don't understand how there would be a liability on the school district's behalf if we can't definitively prove that kids are getting the virus at home or getting the virus in school and vice versa. We can't prove whether one case is greater or less, unless you have the data, of course. If you have the data, then that might prove it. But I've never seen a forensic pathology of this virus to determine how one person contracts it to the next person, to the next person, to the next person. The only pathology I've seen on this is that we're pretty sure it originated in Wuhan, China, right? That's the only thing we're able to really agree on as a society. So that's why I don't understand where the liability would exist if it's something that just plain can't be proven.
So I think Pat had said, and this is true with a lot of lawsuits, sometimes the cost of defending a lawsuit is more than what than what someone would receive. So
I get your
the
point
cost
of view.
of defense. So we want to make certain that our insurance company is going to provide that defense.
Well, and that makes sense, but aren't we afraid of frivolous lawsuits from anything, and haven't we been for years? So from that perspective, right, with the current masking guidelines, there are CDC requirements of what a proper masking is and what proper masking is not. The gaiters are not proper masking. The valves are not proper masking. Kids wearing them around their chin, they're not proper masking. And by the school district not enforcing that, what's happening is kids could potentially be transmitting this virus to one another, which wouldn't that expose the school district to liability for not enforcing? And if that is the case, we haven't been sued yet. Why not? And why are we not worried about that? You see what I mean?
What you mean, but I also, I mean, really, the basis is have it reviewed by our insurance company to make certain that they.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I understand
because
that.
in the summer, when we went mask optional, so you could see what was coming up.
Mhm.
And we said, and we actually at that point were shopping our insurance. We chose to go with the PSBA insurance, which is by Gannon's. But we asked both of those people who gave the presentations, both of the individuals who gave the presentations, we said, look, if the rules become mandatory for masks, and if we don't follow those, and if there's an issue, an event, whatever it may be, would you provide, would there be coverage? And they both said no. So that made that, decision pretty simple. Okay, we follow the rules. And so that's what we've been doing. And I think all we're asking, and that's what I'm asking for Craig, is just want to make certain that our plan
just to make sure
is going to be covered.
That's fair. I think that you eventually risk getting into a constant question of ifs. And what's our last if?
Sure.
Right? So thank you for your time.
Yep.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for everybody that was speaking. We appreciate that. Last couple things we have is some, where is it? It's on the page. Some board communications that we have. We have the personnel transfers. We have the enrollment by month for the school district. We have the enrollment for the whole year going from 2021 to 2022, and we have some field trip requests. We have no board discussion items at this time. The next regular session will be Tuesday, January 25th at the Athens High School Auditorium at 7 o'clock. That'll be at the Athens High School Auditorium. And we will need an executive session for no action will be taken for contract, safety, and personnel. If there's no other questions or comments, the meeting is adjourned.